welcome back. Okay, at long last, the leather die has finally arrived. So we'll unpack it, see what we got, and then we'll do a few tests to see what the colour is like. I've picked up some cotton buds to do a few colour tests with it. So let's start off, open the box, see what we get for our £21. Try and open the box anyway. Okay. And there we have it. Liquid Leather Scuff Master Leather Touch-Up Die Kit with built-in sealant. Graphite grey. Expertly mixed by no name. There we go. You can see that there. Get my finger out of the way. Right, so put that box to one side. And we will open the box and see what we get. Okay, so we've got some foam packing we'll take out. And we've got the actual bottle of dye, not massively large, 65 millilitres. Porsche Graphite Grey D335. Now I'm pretty sure that D335 is not a Porsche designation. And directions for use. Okay, ensure leather is clean. For regular cleaning, use GT15 Gentle Cleaner. I believe that's the stuff I've already got. That was G something. Can't remember off the top of my head, but they were both G designations. For intensive cleaning, use G12 Intensive Cleaner. G12 Intensive Cleaner. I think that's what we had on the other video when we were cleaning the seats and then we conditioned them. So, okay. Dab, wipe, paint or spray on colour. Dilute with up to 20% water to spray. And keep away from children. Okay, so there's the actual dye. So you also get some tints. There's colour toner, which essentially looks like white, and it says add a very small amount to dye to alter the final base colour. Now that I'm a bit worried about because I'm colourblind, so I'm really kind of hoping that the graphite grey is a good colour match without the need to tone it. And this one is exactly the same. This is like a, looks like a dark blue or a black, that one. And the third bottle that you get is a gloss enhancer. So I suppose that changes, I would assume that changes like how shiny the finish is, how much sheen you've got on the finish. Right, on the back of the box is more or less the same directions that are on the bottle. No, it's not. Wipe off all residue of a damp cloth and leave to dry. Wipe over damaged area with G18 leather degreaser or fabric cleaner. I've got those right there. Shake the bottle well, then apply the dye sparingly, building it up in thin layers. The final base colour can be altered by adding a small amount of the toner to the dye, whilst the final finish can be altered by using the gloss enhancer to increase the shine if required. Next day, condition the leather with G11 leather conditioner to soften it and reinstate the smell of old-fashioned English leather. Okay, so there we have it. There's our, and we'll give that a good old shake, make sure that's well mixed. And I suppose we better get down to testing the colour really and seeing how it comes out. Right, so I think the best way to go over here, I've got the one of the roll bar trims that's got a few marks on it, but we've got some areas sort of on the edges here. You can see this on the other camera, but we can dip it in. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go and get some paper put down. I'm not going to clean this, don't think, at the moment. I'm just going to like try dye on some of these areas to see if we get a colour match, and we'll take it from there. So I'm just going to go and get some paper put down, and we'll give it a try. We'll work on this end because we're seeing the camera better, and we have some. If I can get them open. Some cotton buds. Right. Now I left messages in the comments boxes under several videos. I watched a number of videos on sort of how to restore leather, and I left a number of messages asking if you can actually mix the dye with the repair paste, the filler paste, but none of them got back to me, so I don't know whether you can or not, but something we'll just have to try if we get to that stage. Well, it looks promising. It looks promising in the bottle, so that's good. A little bit on there. Oh, it looks actually, I don't know really how well we'll try. I don't honestly think you're going to be able to see the colour match it in the camera, but it's quite thick actually. It's thicker than I expected it to be. So what we'll do is we'll just put that over there. Obviously the colour is going to change quite significantly when it dries, but that looks quite promising. Okay, so what we're going to do now, let's get that in the light, make sure that's coated. I'm just getting it in the light to see how it looks. Alright, yeah, that looks quite promising. So what we'll do is we'll leave that to dry. Put that in the rubbish. It's my plan, well the plan is, the intention is to apply it with one of the foam pads that I was using when I cleaned the seats and conditioned the seats. So, I mean, hopefully with the fact that the dye is quite thick, not a lot of dye there for £20, but we'll see. You know, I mean, if the colour's a good match, then I may not need to dye the whole seats, because that's what originally I was thinking is going to have to dye the whole lot. I think with the dashboard, it's probably going to be better to dye the whole dash because there's so many areas on it that have got to be repaired. But I mean, essentially there's only 2 panels on the driver's seat and one mark on the passenger seat where the seatbelt rubs against the seatbelt clasp rubs against it. So, come back in a little while. Go and have a cup of coffee or something. We'll come back and see what the dye looks like when it's dried out. Okay. That's it for the moment. If it dries okay, we'll move on and we'll try it on the seats. While I was waiting for the leather dye to dry, I rang Bespoke Leather and asked them about the drying time and whether you could mix the dye in with the filler. And I said you can mix the dye in with the filler to a degree. The more dye you put in the filler, the more you risk compromising its integrity. But yeah, you can put some of the dye in with the filler, so that's good.
And drying time apparently is very quick. Because it's water based, it dries very quick. The hotter the air, the hotter the environment, the faster it will dry. And if you use a hairdryer, apparently it will dry almost instantaneously. Leather filler takes a little longer depending on how heavy you put it on, but yeah, obviously if you're doing large areas, build it up in layers. So, happy with the test on the roll bar trim. Colour looks almost identical. Thing to bear in mind is the trim obviously is second-hand trim, so it's probably going to come from different cars. So it may have faded and worn to different degrees over the years. And also just the fact that different areas of the car are going to fade at different rates. So what we're now going to do is try a repair on the passenger seat. But we've got a mark here where obviously the seat belt has rubbed the seat in the past. So that's about the worst part of the passenger seat. The passenger seat, apart from that, is very good. Excuse me looking down at the seat, but also hopefully you'll be viewing the other camera angle at this point. So again, baby steps. We're going to just do that bit to see how the colour matches in. I've just shaken the bottle again. Going to use a cotton bud again, and we're just going to see how that does on touching that in. So we'll just get that into the die, and I'll just pull that out the way. And we're just going to try and just gently dab that into there. So this is very much learning as we go. Looks a little lighter at the moment, but then of course it is. So just going to again now leave that to dry and then have a look at how well that blends into the rest of the seat. Now that might, obviously it's quite a dark mark on there that wouldn't come off, so it might need a couple of coats on it, but we'll see when it dries out. We'll see how it goes. I'm just going to try and sort of spread it a bit more. Try and get it to blend in. I don't know if I'm dragging it around too much, but we'll see. Right, we'll leave that like that. So okay, this is a larger pad that I'm going to use probably when I do the dash, and maybe on the driver's seat. But for the moment, I'm going to go and get rid of this cotton bud before I get dye all over, because at the moment I've got no gloves on and I've got decent clothes on. So again, we're just going to now wait for that to dry and see what we get. That's had about 15 minutes now to dry, so I'm not sure how well you can see it in the other camera shot, but the colour looks pretty good match, but you can still see some of the mark through there. So I'm just going to put a second coat on now, and then we'll go over and try our luck on the driver's seat. Now it's midday, 12 o'clock. I haven't got to use the car till about 4:30, so there's plenty of time for it to dry thoroughly. But as I say, when I phoned them, they said being that it's water based, it dries pretty quick, and it is a lovely warm day today, so it is drying quite fast. But it does give it plenty of time to dry. So okay, we'll just put, it's just this area here that still looks a bit dark. And just sort of try and get that there. bit now. It's a bit sticky now, so that's not working so well. It's tending to be tacky, so we'll just put a bit more on the brush. It is quite thick and creamy in texture. You can. I'm starting to spread that out more than I really want to there, so I'm going to leave that now and let that dry again and see how that looks. See how that looks when that dries out. I'll tell you what we'll do. Put the lid back on that. It might be more beneficial to put it into a smaller cup and just thin it down a bit for some of these more delicate jobs. Here we go. I'm just using a dry cotton bud there to just kind of spread that out. Right, so I'm going to let that dry again, give that about another 15 minutes. So it's very slow going at the moment, but as I say, never done this before, so it's baby steps all the time. So another 10 or 15 minutes of waiting to see what that looks like, and if that's okay, we'll venture onto the driver's seat, which is much bigger panels and a pad, so that's where things could start to go seriously wrong for me, but we will see. Now, the left is taking a lot longer to dry this time, but it's coming along quite promisingly. So I'm going to go for it. I'm just going to see how that's looking that side. I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to use the foam pad. I've got gloves on this time because obviously this could seep through the pad. And I'm going to start on the bolster on driver's side of the seat. Now, I think I've got the other camera set up so you can see it. I can't see the framing on the other camera, so I'm hoping that it is in frame. Now, the bolster, this upright bolster, is the worst part of the driver's seat. The driver's seat generally looks a lot sort of worse, so we're going to put a little bit of this on to the pad. You can see that, and I'm just going to start down here, just literally wiping it on and seeing what we get. Don't want to go on to the other side. This may take quite a lot to build up. Yeah, putting it on with a pad, it's going on a lot thinner application than it is with the cotton buds. So you get a thinner coat. Get a thinner coat with the pads. You have to get a very thin coat. It seems to be hardly covering it. Seems to be hardly covering the panel at all. But we're going to go gentle. Put on very thin layers. Okay, so that's had just going to go a little more, because that's had almost no coating on that at all. Now that's a very thin layer of dye, and it doesn't appear to have covered much at all. So we'll see. I just want to see basically what effect this has before I start buying filler. So we're just going to leave that to dry out. You can see why I wore gloves, because if you look at the back of the pad, that's the front of the pad, and that's my fingers, so that's why we're wearing gloves. Now, one advantage of the dye going on so thin is it's drying very, very quickly. So we're going to put another coat on. Now I'm going to try another technique here that I saw in one of the videos. Rather than wiping the dye on, is dabbing it on. So we'll see how that goes and work from there. Now again, I'm going to drop on the sponge and let's just get the area that's that looks. I don't like the speckle effect it's leaving. That's a bit worrying. I think we'll just go for the wiping it again. I'm just going over to wipe it over again. It seems to be covering a little better this time. Yeah, it seems to be covering, does seem to be covering the marks, so that is something. We're using quite a lot of dye though for that little bottle. But that does seem to be covering it. That's something. Just go a little more. Don't want to go too mad. But the second coat, quite heavy. It does seem to have covered up a lot of the marks. So we'll let that dry. Hope you can hear me because I'm moving around a lot here while I'm doing this. So this is the second coat put on with the sponge. We'll just let that dry. Sorry for the camera angle and the dog tags hanging around in the camera, but not always easy to get these angles, so apologies. Right, so second coat has gone on. I'm hoping you can see it on the other camera angle. Now, the colour does look slightly different. I can't be that I am colour blind. I suppose it's safe to say the shade looks slightly different on the driver's seat. The repair that we did on the passenger seat round the seatbelt anchorage looks brilliant. I'll show you, I'll put a shot of that in a second. That I'm really pleased with. The match on the roll bar trims is almost perfect. So one of the things, because being colourblind and that, I'm really not keen to start using the tints in the dye. And the other thing is I want to try and keep the colour natural. In other words, so the dye, without any tints, the dye is the graphite grey, as it should be when it was new. When the car was first built, when all the leather was new, that's the colour it's meant to be. And that's the colour I want. I don't want graphite grey tinted slightly black or tinted slightly white. I want graphite grey as it was fresh out the factory. So I'm going to kind of stick with, I think anyway, I'm going to stick with the untinted graphite grey. Make life easier in the future. And I mean, if necessary, pretty much I think the driver's seat is probably going to need to be completely recoloured anyway. But if necessary, I will recolour the passenger seat as well. But I don't think I'm going to need to do that. We will see. The dash I've already decided is going to need completely recolouring. Yeah, I think that's a foregone conclusion. And the roll bar trims are so small that I will recolour those. So if the whole dash is going to be recoloured in the standard graphite grey without tinting, and the roll bars are, without tinting, then it makes sense to try and keep the seat colour without using the tint. And then when I get the door panels, any work that needs on the door panels, the same thing again. And then any work that the car needs to do, because this is one of those things that's kind of an ongoing job, I think. You know, once you've done a seat, you might sort of, in a couple of months' time, see a little mark that you missed and thought, oh, I didn't get that. And you just want to do that one mark again. Well, again, if you're using the graphite grey without any tints, doing that one mark, you know that the dye is going to match without any problems. So I think that's where we're going to go with the tinting and that. Secondly, and I've forgotten what secondly was. Secondly is the techniques. When you're using the cotton buds, the dye seems to be very kind of thick and creamy on the cotton bud when you're touching in with that. When you're using it on the sponge, it then seems very watery and like it doesn't cover very well. Which is possibly a good thing, because I was worried about the centres of the seats. Am I blocking the camera down there? I was worried about the centre of the seats. You see there's grime on the centre of this which could be affecting the colour. I was worried about the centre of the seats because they're perforated. And I was worried that if the dye is too thick, it was going to fill up the perforations. But I think putting it on with a sponge, it's so sort of watery that I don't think that will be a problem. So I think we're going to be okay there. The other thing is watching sort of 4 or 5, I don't know, maybe even 6 videos on people restoring leather trim. They've all got their own way of doing it, their own kind of techniques. And one guy, he actually re-dyed the seats first before he used any filler on them. Because as he pointed out, it gives you a base colour, it gives you a uniform colour to start off with. And you'll be surprised that a lot of the marks, and I think hopefully you can see it on this bolster, even with just a second coat on it, a lot of the marks disappear with just the dye. So you end up, you don't have to fill as many bits as you thought you did to get the seat looking presentable. So possibly I'm going to go down that route and sort of, you know, take my time, even if I do the seats a panel at a time, and dye the seats first to get a uniform colour and to actually see just how much does need filling at the end of the day. Because this bolster, which I thought was going to need filler down the bottom here, actually looks pretty bloody good now. It doesn't look that bad at all. So it may not need any filler whatsoever. So that could be a result. So anyway, I'm going to put a third coat on here. Then I'm going to call it a day. And I'll maybe come back to it tomorrow or on Sunday and do a bit more, depending on the weather, because obviously we're working outside. I like to have the roof open because you can, even though I'm colourblind, you can get a better idea of what the colour match is on it. So I'm going to put a third coat on this. We'll have a look at that. We'll have a look at the repair we've done on that seat, and then we'll call it a day. So let's get on with it. I think I might have to buy some more dye as well, but we'll see how it goes. We'll work. I've got to order filler, so when I order the filler, I can order more dye. Now, this little bottle of dye was £20, so the other thing we'll do is we'll watch the costs. We'll watch the costs of the dye and the filler against the quotes I had to have the seats done by a professional. I am now starting to get a little more confident of what I'm doing, because this is going on rather nicely. The only thing that worries you a little bit, I don't know if you can see them in the cameras, you get those kind of air bubbles, but they seem to be wiping out reasonably easy. It does seem, I don't know if the dye is sort of partly lifting the dye underneath, but it does seem to feel better and cover better as you put the coats on. Oops, I've got some on black there. Obviously when you've got trim on the seat near where you're doing, which I haven't at the moment apart from that bit down there which I shouldn't really have been going near. That's a good idea to mask it up. Right, okay. Gonna let that dry. Okay, so that's the third and final coat. As you can see there, it does definitely look different, but the plus side of it is that seat looks, or that bolster, excuse the light changing, looks a lot better. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything with this sort of ripple effect up here, but it looks a lot better than it did, because those marks down the bottom there are almost unnoticeable. I will colour the whole seat, I think, eventually. Now this is what I was saying about the colour. If you look there, the repair that we've done on the seat belt, the colour matches perfect. It makes you wonder if generally the driver's seat is off colour anyway and needs to have the colour changed. But we'll see how we go when we recolour the whole seat. Well, I'm quite pleased with the outcome of that. Obviously, slow process today. We've spent a good 2 hours just doing those couple of little bits. But it's like anything, when you're sort of first doing it and you're on that kind of learning curve, you just got to take your time. You've got to experiment and see what you get. Very pleased with the results. As I say, on here, on the trim, you can't see at all where I put the dye on. It matches absolutely 100% perfect. And the same with the passenger seat, that repair, that little bit we did round by the seatbelt clasp. Dye matched him perfectly. So I think with the driver's seat, it may be literally the whole seat, the whole, or at least the front of the seat, is going to need completely re-dyeing. As I said, to be honest, I think I would prefer to do that, because you get a uniform colour, it will get rid of any marks, and if you've got like just certain areas of the seat that's faded more than other areas, it gets rid of all of that, so it will get a much more uniform colour. It gets the car back to a standard colour interior, because you know that you're using the colour as it was originally. So that works for me. Obviously, if you're just doing a repair in your own car, then you might be better to try and match it. But there you go. So I think I'm pleased with the result on that bolster. It looks a lot better. A lot of it now doesn't show, and I thought it was going to have to be quite a bit of using filler in that, and I don't think it's going to need any filler on it at all now, or very little. What I will try next, I think the next stage we will do is, I think I will try dyeing the whole base of the driver's seat, the complete upper surface of the seat part of the driver's seat, and we'll see how that looks, and do it step by step that way. So, hope you found it interesting. Bit different here because I'm on a learning curve as much as you guys. I'll keep track, as I say, what have I done with it? Here it is.
That was £20 for that bottle. Well, I know you can buy it in bigger volumes, and obviously I'm going to have to buy the, still quite a bit in there. I'm going to have to buy the filler. To have the seats redone, I was quoted £240. Well, the cheapest quote I could find was £240. So we will see. I'll keep track of what it costs in dye and fillers and that too, and the pads. I'll put a list to all these bits in the description box underneath where to get all this stuff. We'll keep track of the cost to see how it compares to having them done professionally. Because obviously, if you end up spending as much in materials as what it costs to have someone do them, you might as well have someone do them. But I think the other benefit, of course, is it means that in the future, you've got that opportunity. You can always maintain your interior yourself if it gets damaged, if it gets torn. Because I think tear repairs on leather aren't a lot. You just basically, they give you a glue and a bit of material which you stick. You sort of tuck in and stick underneath it, and then you use the filler like we're going to be using the filler on these marks. It means that you can maintain your own leather interior in the future with no real massive cost to yourself. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and as always, please subscribe, please click like, and please share, and I'll see you in the next video. So bye for now.